Here's my script. Could you read it?
Okay, yeah, and move that
Let's
script over
edit
here.
this part
Yeah.
out, okay? Going 10-1.
Rain dance, Sundance, con.
Let's do this.
You guys ready?
Quiet Thank you
on
so
set.
much for this award. Ready and action. Welcome back to Mel Moment Mondays. I'm your host, Mel, and today we have one of my incredibly talented friends from film school, Sophie Allen. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Oh my gosh, it's been like we were just talking about this, but it's been a while since I've talked to you. I feel like, yeah, as you said, everyone's just kind of like dispersed.
Yeah, for real. I feel like after film school, it's like some people never do anything with film ever again, and then some people, it's like you never hear from them again because they're doing everything.
That's for sure. Super busy, yeah. So to start off, how did you get into filmmaking, and specifically, why did you choose Drexel?
Yeah, so I got into filmmaking growing up. I didn't have cable, so I wasn't like watching Disney Channel or anything. And I just had PBS on every day, and I loved watching documentaries. There was a show called Nova that I was like obsessed with. That show, I was like, I want to be in Machu Picchu filming the mountains. Like, that's what I want to do. So I really got into film school for documentary filmmaking. And Drexel specifically, honestly, oh, no shade because I love my NYU girls. But when I went to NYU to go visit, I really wanted to see all the like film studios and like, oh, if I go to school here, what am I gonna get to do? And they were like, sorry, you have to be a student to go in there. You don't get to see anything. But then when I went to go visit Drexel, the head of the department at the time happened to be just in the hallway, and she's like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm a prospective student. I just kind of wanted to see the film department and everything." And she's like, "Let me give you an hour-long personal tour." So I really felt, even as a prospective student, that like Drexel wanted me as like, I don't know, in the film world.
Yeah. So and then when at your time in Drexel, I know you came in wanting to do documentary, and then also like you were like, I feel like a huge sound person in the basement for like the longest time.
Yeah.
And then you switched to G&E. So like how did all of that happen, going from like docs to like G&E and like sound to G&E?
Yeah. I mean, docs, I think I still definitely have a focus on. Like, I'm always recording and like I like to do like a mix between experimental and doc is kind of what I'm working on right now. So I still definitely hold on to that. It was kind of hard to do that throughout college because there was so much focus on narrative production, but I'm kind of doing it on my own now. And then from sound to G&E, I honestly, I just had not been exposed to G&E at all, like maybe the first few years of college. So I had no concept of like that being an option for me. And so when I took my first, I think it was just called basic lighting. It wasn't even like specifically like ribbon electric. Um, and when I took that class, I was like, oh, this is really fun. I'm really good at, you know, operating lights and understanding the physics behind it. And like physics was the only science in high school that I was good at, so it was like kind of exciting to be like, okay, I understand this a little bit. And so I that professor was really, really great, Tom Quigley, and he really encouraged me to kind of like lean into it because I just was like really interested in it. And from there, I got a co-op at a grip and electric warehouse. And that kind of just, I started getting jobs through them. And it was just kind of like, this is what I'm doing now. This is what I enjoy. And yeah.
How did that class run that made you so interested in it, just besides like the, you know, the physics of it or like the equipment? Like was there something in particular that you were like, compared to all the other classes, that really stood out to you in the way that it was run? Because I know personally for me, like there were some classes that were a little bit like more boring or not as hands-on, or you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And then there's others where
100%.
it was like, oh my gosh, like this is why I came to film school, you know?
Yeah, honestly, I think it's what you said, like the hands-on thing. as much as I love film theory and I could do that all day, every day, and just yap to people about movies, like I wanted to go to film school to learn the physical aspect of it and like get my hands on the physical aspect of it. And so that class was like entirely hands on of, setting up the lights, learning how to use a light meter, learning how to use all of the grip equipment. Like I had heard of lights before. I had never heard of a flag. So like learning all of that was just everything was brand new and it felt exciting and really just pulled me in.
Right, right. So, do you think, like, post grad now, it's been like about a year, maybe a year and a half. Do you think college prepared you enough to work in grip and electric on these other sets, or was it kind of like outside experience? What do you think?
I think both, but I think it's also like not to like keep gassing Drexel up or anything, but I do think it was like a uniquely Drexel thing that I do feel like it prepared me for my career, specifically because of the co-op program. If I had not had my co-op like in a grip and electric warehouse where all day, every day, like all I was doing was reading lists of grip and electric equipment and fulfilling orders. So like in order to do your job well, you have to know everything basically. And so that really prepared me for working in a professional sense, especially because I was filling orders for, union and non-union clients. So I was speaking with people who were already professionals in the industry, and through that kind of building networking and getting jobs through talking to people while I'm at work, um, which is nice. But yeah, like if I had not had that opportunity to do the 6 month co-op at a warehouse like that, I I know I have plenty of friends who like went to Temple and stuff and didn't get the co-op opportunity and like they're doing fine, but they also like don't have as many credits as I, which is not like a big deal. But like it's just like we got that opportunity, you know what I mean? We got that extra step up, step forward.
Right, right. I feel like working at the warehouse is something that they don't really, or like a rental company is something they don't really necessarily talk about in film school. I feel like they really like go
Yeah.
hard on like I don't know, just like make a film and it'll make it, which is like very
Right.
risque.
Yeah.
Like do you think working at a rental company or is the best option to go if you're straight out of college, or would you maybe recommend something else or
I think it's a really great opportunity. I think it kind of depends. So Philadelphia is not like it's not New York and it's not LA, but it's got a pretty substantial industry compared to other places on the East Coast. And so depending on where you are, if you work at a rental house in a really great area in a great industry, you're going to be interacting with the professionals who are shooting in that area. So it's kind of like you have to be the right person who knows how to network properly and just like talk a lot to people and be personable. But if you are that type of person, it's an immediate foot into like, oh, hey, the key on this Apple TV show that's shooting knows me and has spent like 8 hours with me putting together a grip order. So then you've got that little bit of recognition. But I also know plenty of people who worked in a warehouse who like exclusively hated it, didn't really get any connections out of it, and then like pieced out. So like it just depends on the type of person you are. I think sometimes the people who are maybe like less personable but more like purely talented like could make a movie and go out and get the accolades immediately, like maybe that's the path for them. But like yeah, I mean most of getting anywhere in a film career is just networking and like talking to people. So I feel like that warehouse really set me up well.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I feel like they definitely don't talk about networking again in film school enough. Like, yeah,
No.
and just like I think, yeah, as you said, like a rental house is like the prime example of how you talk to people because you're literally giving them equipment like every day.
Yeah, like I have friends who did rental work at a camera body house in Atlanta, and they're talking to the Marvel people. You know what I mean? Like you might feel like, oh, I'm like so far down the line. I'm just the person putting together the gear, but it's like, okay, you're talking to real people and real shit, and that's exciting.
Yeah, that's so cool, Atlanta. Yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
you can get work anywhere if you like search for it. You can definitely get work anywhere.
I won't discount that it's really hard still. There are a
Oh yeah,
lot of
no.
people like I've been really, really lucky with my situation, but like I have plenty of friends who are like full-time serving just to get their next opportunity. So
Um, so starting out in G&E, like for a new grip, what should a new grip know about working on a set with, cables, electricity, safety? I remember in that like in the lighting class them going over it kind of quickly and briefly. Um is there like to kind of like yeah, for someone new like it just kind of like go from the ground up like how like is there a specific way to wrap cable or just just speak about that and distro boxes and all that.
yeah, so grip mostly isn't if you're on set as a grip straight up, you're not going to be touching any of that. So like you don't even need to be panicked. You would be worried about that if you were on as like an electric, which, you know, different departments but like same world. And a lot of times if you're the lowest level, you'll be put on as a swing, which is basically either the grip department or the electric department can have you. Usually like a lot of times it'll be like a PA kind of level idea. Um, but what I would say is, as a newbie, as someone totally green on set, you are never going to be put in responsibility of something that could like kill people. You shouldn't. If you are, the set that you're on is not taking precautions properly. But you know, like you're never going to be the person necessary. I feel like you're not going to be the person like fucking around with the generator and stuff like you're going to be someone following around people with sandbags. And part of getting to the higher level where you are dealing with like thousands of watts of power is they're going to train you every step of the way. No one's going to just throw you in the fire and be like, go ahead, put your hand inside a generator while it's on. Like, um, but that being said, just like listen to instructions. That's the biggest one. Any good key and best boy are going to have your best safety in mind. So it's their job to keep you safe. It's production's job to keep everyone safe. Um, and if you feel like you're in an unsafe situation or you're being asked to do something unsafe, like if you've never driven you know, 3-ton truck before, if you're like, I've only ever driven my sedan, and they're like, no, it's okay. Drive an ambulance right now. You just say no. Like it's not worth like, I don't know, getting in a car crash just to say yes to people. But yeah, safety at a very basic level where you're a newbie on set should be something that you're taught and not just have to panic about. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, and if they're using a lot of power on set and asking you to plug stuff in and you're not comfortable with it, like I think any department head would rather have someone say, hey, I've never done this before. Can you please show me how to do it? Or like, you don't even have to say, I've never done this before. You can be like, oh, hey, it's been a minute. Can you give me a refresher? You know what I mean? Um, and people want to help you. At least in Philly, that's how it is. I've only worked like close to New York once. Um, well, that's a lie. I did work in New York once. Um, I was like, wait a minute, I was in Times Square. I lied to you. Um, but generally, from my experience, people are very kind. They don't want anyone to get hurt. If you're honest about not knowing something or being nervous about, something dangerous, they're gonna help you out.
Yeah, safety is definitely like the biggest thing on any set. I feel like sometimes smaller sets can kind of forget about that, which is really bad.
For
But,
sure. Yeah.
safety should always be number one.
Agreed.
um, G&E is like predominantly a male dominated department. How do you go about, like, have you felt any sort of way being like a woman or a female, like in that department, in terms of like carrying things or them taking you seriously? I know every department kind of differs, and there's obviously, it depends on the person, but
For sure.
if you're like a young female trying to break in, and you're scared of that, like how have you navigated that?
I have been really lucky that a lot of the sets that I have been on have been with crews in Philadelphia that have already kind of weeded out the misogynist creeps, to put it lightly. Like there have been Philadelphia wide group chats with like G&E departments that have like banished people that don't really work anymore, or like I've been told like, hey, look out for this person, but I've never ran into anything on set. I think a lot of what I have experienced as a young woman on in G&E on set has come from like my own insecurities. So when I started working in G&E, I was not like necessarily the person that's going to go to the gym every day and, lift weights, but because I started working in that industry, I felt really insecure. There were men around me and even women around me, to be honest, who were way stronger than me. And just like, to me, that I was very insecure that that showed whoever I was working with that I was less capable in some way. Mind you, they don't care how much you can carry. Like there are people on set that they're gonna like, that was never an issue. No one ever had a problem with me being able to push a muscle cart with 20 sandbags on it versus someone who can push a muscle cart with 40 sandbags on it, because the sandbags are going to get there no matter what. Um, that exclusively came from my insecurity of seeing all these strong people around me and wanting to feel more capable, if you want to say that. I've been really I always joke to people too that a lot of the people that I do work with who are men are kind of in the age range that they could be my dad. And so a lot of them have daughters. So they're like, oh my God, this one is very specific, but I had one that was like, I love your tattoos. My daughter's actually a tattoo artist and she's your age. So like if you ever want, so I've pretty much only ever gotten the like very sweet, dad vibes from the people I've worked with. And then there have been some really badass women that I have worked with on set as well. And like, it is a bit of a boys' club. I mean, it is a boys' club, but in a way where they want you to be like a part of that and not like, no one ever says anything inappropriate or that would like ever make me uncomfortable, but there's still the kind of like playful ribbing that guys do. But like that's just how set is, I kind of feel like. But yeah, I would say most of my kind of any negative things that have happened to me because I'm a woman have been just my own perception and insecurity. Um, I have had working in a studio that's like a little more like not on set. I guess on set out in the world. I work in broadcast television too, so it's like a little bit different because in broadcast television you'll have people that are like hired full time to do like it's just different. Um, but I have had some misogyny from working in broadcast television as a woman. And I think a lot of that is just like those people have been working that job so long that they were probably there when women weren't allowed to work, like in a G&E capacity on broadcast TV sets. So, it sucks. I've cried about it, but it doesn't like, they're like, stop putting up all those lights. And I'm like, here's an email with a detailed diagram of where and what to do with these lights. Please be so for real.
Oh
Um,
man.
yeah, but it's like the same world, but it's a little different. So
Right, right. That's so cool though that you do kind of both. Like broadcast is like so different. And I feel like Drexel definitely didn't dive into broadcast very much after they nixed the
no,
broadcast class, but that's a whole nother discussion.
yeah, yeah.
So I believe you've worked on union sets,
Hmm.
correct? Yeah, union, and
Yes,
then also, of course, like a lot of student and indie films. Do you see
yeah.
any difference between those two, or do you have any preference? What do you think? What are the differences and preference?
I really like indie sets for kind of the personability, they're very intimate, they're very, you can tell there's a level of passion there that sometimes on a union set it might feel a little more commercial, because I mean they usually are. Um and they feel a little better for the soul, I guess. Like you don't necessarily feel like, I'm just working for a company and this, yada yada. Um, that being said, I really like that union sets take stuff really, really seriously. Um, that there are clear lines of like repercussions if something happens on set. Um, I mean, I'm so pro union that it's hard to say anything bad about being represented by a community of people. I mean, okay, there's a lot there's a lot going on there, but every union set that I have been on, I have really felt like they took my time seriously, and I have been on like indie productions where it doesn't feel like they take your time as seriously, and part of that is just like union sets, the second you go over time, you're getting paid more for that. If they're expecting you to be somewhere, they're getting you the transportation, they're getting you the lodging, you're taken care of. Indie sets, it's like, oh, you can't get there, you don't like, yeah, of course there are plenty of examples that I've had on, smaller productions and indie sets where they do take care of you just as well as a union. But if you agree to the wrong shoot where it's just some like weirdo doing an ego trip type movie, you don't have the protection, and that it's kind of scary and sucks and can be a waste of money. So yeah, it depends on, like, I've a lot of the union stuff that I've worked on has been commercial stuff, especially in Philly, so literally just shooting ads. And that can feel like a little sad sometimes, just because you're like, "Ugh, what's the like art and passion?" But yeah, but it's nice to like have your time taken seriously and get the paycheck at the end of the day. So they both have their positives and their negatives.
Right. With that, it seems like you're trying to get into the union at some point, correct?
Yeah, so it's kind
How's
of
that
complicated in
process?
Philly right now because they have not accepted anyone in the union in like, I might not have the right number, but it's like 15 years or something like that. Like
Oh
it's a
wow.
crazy long time. People have joined the union by working like long enough hours on a one union set to like basically be flipped into the union. It doesn't happen a lot, but it has. Um, and I have recently done enough union hours that I got a bunch of paperwork saying that I was getting like union benefits, but I'm not in the union, so I don't know what that's all about. I gotta contact some people, but yeah, they started sending me paperwork about it, so I'm hoping that that will be a good thing. But right now I'm kind of weighing my options just because if you're in the union, you can't work on non-union productions. But
Right.
if you're not in the union, you can work on union productions and non-union productions. So it's like,
Right.
yeah, it's like you kind of have to weigh how much it's kind of like a gamble of like how much union work you think there'll be in the area that you're working in. And right now in Philly, it seems like at least in G&E, there's not enough work to employ every union member in Grip and Electric in the area. So for
Right.
now, I'm holding off, especially because I do work in a more full-time capacity broadcast television now. So that's like, I don't need to be in a union for that. And that's like really consistent work. Um, but yeah, I would eventually love to be in the union and just exclusively do like bigger union shoots, but we shall
Yeah.
see. It's all up in the air.
I know, it's so exciting.
Yeah, it's scary.
It's scary. It definitely is. What's like the most challenging project that you've worked on in G&E? Is there a specific story that you're like, oh my gosh, this was like either super terrible or this was like the coolest thing?
Okay, I have one that was like it was super chaotic, but it was also the coolest thing. So I worked on a Netflix show called The Madness, which I don't know when it comes out. So I who knows if it will. But we did a 1 day shooting in New York City, like in Times Square and like all around there, which was really awesome because it was my first time working in New York. It was a lot of my friends' first time working in New York. I was really close with the key grip for that production and also with the best boy. And that day, the best boy was like, I'm too old for New York. I don't want to go. Like, Sophie, do you want to be the best boy? So I got to be best boy for one
Oh
day for
wow.
this shoot in New York, which was awesome. It was really cool. But it was also insane because it's in New York City and you're with talent. Excuse me, sir. He doesn't care. I'm shooting a podcast. Um, so it's insane in New York because you're with people that like people recognize, like talent that people recognize, and you've got all the tourists. We're like having to cart grip gear past like lines of people waiting to get into their Broadway shows. Like it was insane. We're like at parking grip trucks. Well, I wasn't, the Teamsters were parking grip trucks like in front of the Times Square McDonald's. Like it's just it was so much and it was really a great I felt so honored to have been given that responsibility of like being higher up on the totem pole for the shoot in Times Square. But it was so much fun. There was a point where we were shooting actually like physically in Times Square, and they put up a bunch of like police barricades. And I was like laying dolly track while there are like people on barricades, like looking at us, people like, what's going on? What are you shooting? And it was just like this really weird feeling of like, please leave me alone. I'm trying to do my job. But also in the back of my head, like this bit of validation of like, okay, like I'm doing something, like this is what I went to college for. Like I really wanted to be in a production that like felt like something was happening, you know? So it was
Did
kind
you
of a
feel
mix.
like yeah, did you feel like in that moment like you made it? Like this is like
Yeah,
it?
I think we all did. They put us up in a hotel in Times Square and we were all like, guys, they
Oh my
like
gosh.
we did it.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
I had a lot of friends that were on that and so it was really fun.
That's so cool though, Times Square. Fun for sure.
Oh yeah.
So what are you like working on right now? Can you say, or is there anything in the future that you're excited about or like would want to work on? Is there like a specific thing that you're like, oh my gosh, I would love to work on like that?
So I am patiently waiting for three people to continue shooting in Philadelphia. Adam Sandler, who's always bringing work here, M. Night Shyamalan, who, hot take, should have filmed Task in Philadelphia, or not Task, Trap in Philadelphia. I'm so hurt. They said, they said the perpetrator is on 6th and Market, and then they show a shot of Toronto or something. I was not happy. But yeah, definitely need M. Night to bring some more production our way. And then Ridley Scott as well, doing always bringing stuff here. I would love to work on any of that. And let me think who, oh, Mark Ruffalo just did Task here, which like just wrapped a few days ago. And a bunch of my friends were on it. And I got asked to day play on it for one day, but I couldn't because I already had something scheduled. So I was really annoyed about that. But I was close.
Canceled.
I was close. It's okay. But yeah, like those people are all kind of bringing work to Philly right now, and I've gotten a few opportunities to work in New York City, just a lot of commercial stuff, but it's obviously a lot more of a ordeal to like put together getting over there and doing work, but I would love to. But right now I am working full-time broadcast television as a lighting engineer. So I'm basically going in there and like programming all the lights. I work on Grandma 2 and Grandma 3, which are like the operating systems that you can use to control the lights. And so it's a lot of like grid work, putting lights in grids, adjusting, it's also a lot of stuff I never thought I would do, like working with networking and like knowing how to set up Ethernet to like DMX and all that. Like it's crazy. It's a lot of, it's very involved. And then also just like knowing how to repair grip and electric equipment is part of my job. So like soldering inside of lights and all that fun stuff.
Oh my
So
gosh.
it's a lot, but it's super fun.
Did you learn all of that like on the job? Like how to like set up all those like lighting things that I it's way above me. Like did someone teach you that, or were you just like kind of shadowing someone, or how did that work?
Yeah, it's kind of a mix. A lot of stuff I taught myself just because I like want to be a professional in this industry, and a lot of my board operation training was kind of a mix. I was taught how to operate the board specifically for the program that I work for. And so like they had a lot of preset stuff. And just like, oh, press this button to know how to do this. But I've also like gone on the back end and learned how to actually program everything. So it's been a mix. They'll teach you like, oh, here's how to program our lights in this studio, but I'm like, okay, now I want to teach myself if I went to any stage anywhere how to program all the lights. So that's been really fun. But yeah, most of it has been on-site training. I taught myself how to solder, but like that wasn't very hard. That was, I mean, it's just heating up metal and so but yeah, luckily a lot of places, no matter what capacity, like if you're in television, if you're in film, they're not gonna just throw you out there and like watch you fail. If you're like at a very low level and they know you're coming in super fresh, like they're gonna give you a chance. They're gonna help you out and do the on-site training, basically.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
yeah. I feel like Genie is one of those like kind of scary departments that like no
Yeah.
one really knows anything about, but then when you step in, you're like, ooh, there's a lot of big stuff and a lot of technical stuff. I feel like it's definitely like the most technical department on set, and it's cool that they'll
Yeah,
take a chance on
yeah,
you.
everything's, I mean, I look at camera and I'm like, that's the most technical. I have no idea what's going on there. Like, so I guess it's like, yeah, from an outside perspective, it does look intimidating, but it's really just like so much of it is just like tightening pipes and like putting clamps on stuff. Like it's not super deep. A lot of it too is like if you've ever done any type of woodworking or anything like that. If you've ever at my high school, if you were doing any of the theater productions, you were required to do like stagehand work and basically help build the stage. So like a lot of it is like I already knew how to use a table saw coming into it. So like great, now I can, cut down this plywood to, put up a beam so that we can hang lights off of it. Like that's a lot of what it is just coming up with creative solutions to interesting problems that the, DP will give you. And there you go. It's awesome. It's kind of like Legos too. You've got all these tools
Right.
and it's just like, all right, here's the hole. How do I fill it?
Yeah, it's very like think on the fly for sure.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so now we're gonna play like the film Would You Rather. It's one
Okay.
question, but considering you're in G&E, would you rather work in a blizzard or in a heat wave?
Wow. Honestly, I feel like heat wave just because with the blizzard, you'd have to like deal with this like actual precipitation and stuff. And like there are ways to keep equipment cool. But if equipment's buried in snow, like you can't, you're, yeah. Because also, I feel like I've worked in a heat wave. Like, I feel like I've worked, like, when I worked on the one Netflix show I did in Philly, it was like a heat index of 105. It was
Oh my gosh.
horrible. We were
Ew.
all sweating. Everyone, after day one, everyone in the G&E department had a sunburn, and we were all like, oh, shit. And so the next day I was like, Mom, I was lathering everyone up with sunscreen. I was like, not today, boys. Yeah, so I feel like having worked in what felt like basically a heat wave, I know I could do it again.
I would rather not work in either. I would probably pick heat wave too. Because again, camera department, everything freezes and things go to shit.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then for the final question that I kind of ask everyone to wrap up is if you could tell your younger self something, like what advice would you give them if they were coming into the film industry again?
I would say don't be afraid to ask questions. I think a lot of people get really overwhelmed by this perception of like, oh, I don't want to look like the fool that doesn't know anything. But people on sets much further respect people who are willing to say, hey, can you help me out? Hey, can you show me how to do this? Or even people who are like, hey, I've heard of this thing. I know we're not doing it. Like, if we have time, can you show me how to build a menace arm if you've never done that before or something like that? I mean, there's a little bit of a mix because obviously you have to know when it's appropriate to ask questions, but that is, yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions.
Well, thank you so much for hopping on.
Yeah,
How
this
can
was so fun.
how can people like find you or follow you if they have questions?
Oh my gosh. My Instagram is Zanzibar Tree, ZANZIBARTREE. But honestly, I'm not like an influencer or anything. Like I don't I haven't really I'm working on a lot of projects right now that I'd like to like put out in a more like this is my official space where I'm putting out projects. But I haven't really like committed to a brand identity or anything yet. So someday.
Someday. Alrighty, I'll put your social down in
Beautiful.
the box below. And yeah, thank you so much for hopping on.
Yeah,
And
of course.
we'll
This is
we'll
so fun.
we'll make sure we talk more often.
Yes.
Alrighty.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to learn more about my experience as an up and coming filmmaker or catch up on more episodes, follow me on Instagram at MELYDE12. This podcast is also available on Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Please like, subscribe, and spread the word. Thank you guys again, and that's a wrap.